My name is Camille. I am 33 years old, and I work as a senior forensic accountant for a corporate firm in Chicago. My entire career revolves around following the money, identifying discrepancies, and destroying meticulously constructed lies. I spend my days tearing apart fabricated financial statements and exposing fraudsters who think they are smarter than everyone else in the room. Yesterday, I was forced to apply those exact same skills to my own marriage, uncovering a betrayal so profound that it shattered my entire reality. The nightmare unfolded at an upscale modern American restaurant downtown. I had booked a private dining room to host my birthday dinner. The ambiance was everything you would expect for a celebration that cost $2,000. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over white linen tablecloths, and a jazz quartet played softly in the main dining area. I had paid for everything myself, wanting to treat my family to a flawless evening. My husband of 5 years, Declan, sat close to my side. Across from us sat my parents, Thomas and Cynthia, along with my 29-year-old sister, Sienna. Sienna has always been the golden child of our family. Growing up, she was coddled, shielded from consequences, and handed every opportunity on a silver platter. While I worked 70-hour weeks to build my career, Sienna drifted from one expensive hobby to another, fully subsidized by our parents. I always knew my mother favored her, but I never fully grasped the toxic depths of their bond until the plates were cleared for dessert. Sienna abruptly stood up. She grabbed her silver spoon and clinked it against her champagne flute. The sharp, ringing sound cut through the polite dinner conversation, demanding absolute attention. I looked up, expecting a toast or perhaps a sarcastic birthday wish. Instead, she looked directly into my eyes, and a slow, predatory smirk spread across her face. "I have an announcement to make," Sienna said, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. "I am pregnant." Before I could even offer a word of congratulations, she delivered the killing blow. She placed her hand flat on the table, leaned forward, and added that she was carrying Declan's child. The room froze. The silence that followed was suffocating, heavy enough to crush the breath right out of my lungs. I turned slowly to look at my husband. I expected him to leap from his chair to shout that she was insane, to defend our marriage with every ounce of his being. I waited for the furious denial. It never came. Declan shrank into his seat, his broad shoulders suddenly looking incredibly small. He stared down at his expensive leather shoes, refusing to meet my gaze. In a pathetic, trembling whisper, he admitted that they had been carrying on an affair behind my back for the past 6 months. My mind reeled, trying to process the magnitude of the betrayal, but the true sickness of my family dynamic revealed itself a second later. My mother, Cynthia, did not slap Declan. She did not yell at Sienna for destroying my marriage. Instead, she immediately reached across the table and grabbed Sienna by the arm, physically shielding her. Cynthia turned her wrath entirely on me. She told me to keep my voice down, even though I had not spoken a single syllable. She hissed that Sienna was in a fragile state and that I needed to handle this quietly to avoid embarrassing the family. My mother looked me dead in the eye and said that I needed to be the bigger person because my sister was expecting a child. She actually had the audacity to blame me, claiming that Declan just needed a real woman. She said my demanding career as an accountant and my failure to give him a family had pushed him into Sienna's arms. That was the exact moment the heartbroken, devastated wife inside me died, and the cold, rational, forensic accountant took the wheel. For the past 12 months, Declan and I had been enduring the grueling process of in vitro fertilization. I had subjected my body to endless rounds of painful hormone injections, invasive procedures, and crushing emotional disappointments. Declan was supposed to do his part by completing a final comprehensive fertility screening at our clinic last month. He went in for the test, but he never bothered to log into the patient portal to check his results. He left that administrative burden to me. carelessly assuming his health was perfectly fine. I did not break down in tears. I did not scream or throw my drink in his face. Instead, I maintained an icy composure that clearly unsettled my mother. I calmly unclasped my designer handbag and reached inside. I pulled out a crisp, sealed medical envelope containing the printed results of Declan's final screening, which the clinic had emailed to me just a few weeks prior. I smoothed the paper out on the table right next to my half-empty wine glass. I looked at Declan, who was still cowering in his seat, and then at Sienna, who was waiting for me to collapse into a sobbing mess. I announced to the room that I had a toast of my own to make. Holding the medical report up to the chandelier light, I began reading the clinical findings aloud. I read the exact medical terminology detailing his reproductive health, articulating every word with absolute precision. Then I reached the final diagnosis. I projected my voice so there could be no misunderstanding. The diagnosis is azoospermia, I read clearly. 100% irreversible sterility. Declan has a 0 sperm count. He cannot father a child. Declan's head snapped up so violently I thought he might break his own neck. All the blood drained from his face, leaving him looking like a corpse. His hand trembled so violently that he knocked his wineglass off the table. It hit the hardwood floor and shattered into a dozen pieces, the dark red liquid pooling around his shoes. Sienna turned the color of ash. Her smug, victorious smirk vanished, instantly replaced by sheer, unadulterated panic. Her eyes darted wildly around the room as her brain struggled to comprehend the medical reality I had just dropped on her. Cynthia sat frozen in her chair, her mouth opening and closing without making a single sound. Her protective grip on Sienna suddenly looking completely absurd. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the white linen tablecloth. I locked my eyes onto my beloved younger sister, watching her squirm under the weight of her own catastrophic lie. "So, dear sister," I asked, my voice cutting through the dead silence of the room, "whose baby are you actually carrying? And why are you forcing my sterile husband to take the fall?" The seconds following my question stretched into an agonizing eternity. The soft jazz music drifting from the main dining room felt entirely disconnected from the war zone our private table had just become. I watched the realization hit Declan like a physical blow. The pathetic, cowardly man who had just admitted to betraying our marriage suddenly understood that he had been played for an absolute fool. "Sienna, tell me she is lying," Declan stammered, his voice cracking as he reached across the table and grabbed her wrist. "Tell me that test is fake." Sienna yanked her arm away, as if his touch burned her. The smug, victorious aura she had paraded around all evening completely vanished. Her chest began to heave, and right on cue, the theatrical waterworks began. Large crocodile tears spilled over her perfectly contoured cheeks. She pressed a hand to her stomach and began to hyperventilate, putting on a performance worthy of an award. "The clinic made a mistake," Sienna cried out, her voice pitching into a hysterical shrill. "Those tests are wrong all the time. Labs mix up samples, you know they do. Declan, you have to believe me." I sat back in my chair and watched her scramble. As a forensic accountant, I am trained to spot when a fraudster realizes the walls are closing in. They always follow the same pattern. First comes the shock, then the aggressive denial, and finally the desperate attempt to shift the blame. Sienna was executing the playbook flawlessly. "It was a comprehensive genetic and physical screening, Sienna," I said, my tone flat and conversational. "The doctors tested him twice to be absolutely certain before discussing our next steps for in vitro fertilization. There was no mix-up. He is shooting blanks. You are carrying a child, but it certainly does not belong to the man sitting next to me." Declan buried his face in his hands, letting out a sound that was half sob and half groan. He was mourning a child that never existed, mourning the destruction of his marriage and realizing he had thrown his entire life away for a woman who was actively using him as a convenient scapegoat. I expected my parents to turn on Sienna. I expected